I actually just want to do this job till I die.
No, you don't. No, that's not true.
So nice that you came.
Hello, Barbara.
I can start.
What's up? You ready?
I said 4 or 5 times. I mean, in all.
They're the folks here for the water bills.
Very good evening and a very happy new year to everyone. Thank you for joining with us as the County Board begins its 2020 year with its organizational meeting. As has been our recent custom, we gather on the first business day after January 1st to organize ourselves for the year and, most importantly, to elect officers who will lead the board in the coming year. So that is our first order of business, and that is the election of our chair. Are there any motions? Mr. Gutschall.
Mr. Chair, I wish to nominate Libby Garvey to be our chair for calendar year 2020.
Thank you. There's a motion to have Libby Garvey serve as chair for 2020. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Mr. DeFerranti. Mr. Gutschall, would you like to speak to the motion?
I surely would, but let's face it, what a difference 4 years can make. I make this nomination with no reservation whatsoever, as I have full confidence that Libby will lead us ably through both the challenges and the excitement of this next year. Her servant leadership style gives me every assurance she will approach her chairmanship with a humble desire to help each of us to be the best board members that we can be. And as we'll hear shortly, she is not in pursuit of her own agenda, but rather seeks to reinforce our shared agenda, from equity to housing, small businesses to biophilic principles, and even child hunger. I have admired Libby's tenacity, and even when we disagree, she exemplifies that most noble ideal of democracy, to disagree without being disagreeable. Please join me in supporting Libby Garvey for our chair.
Thank you, Mr. Gutschall. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of Libby Garvey as chair of the Arlington County Board, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Congratulations, Ms. Garvey. We'll do our ceremonial switching of the chairs to signify the peaceful transition of power.
He's actually relieved.
No takebacks.
Yeah, right. All right. And thank you very much for those kind words, Eric. I really, really appreciate it. So we're just going to keep moving on here really quickly. And this comes to the election of our vice chair. So I'd like to have nominations for 2020 board vice chair. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to nominate Eric Gutschall for the 2020 board vice chairman.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any other nominations? All right. Any discussion?
Do wish to speak to it, if I may.
Yeah, please do.
Thank you. So I think the board, and in fact this whole community, will be fortunate to have Eric in a leadership role on the county board. During his tenure, he has brought both content knowledge, particularly in the area of planning, and a vision and passion for Arlington. And as the saying goes, vision without action is a daydream, and action without vision is a nightmare. Eric's vision ensures that our comprehensive planning and site plans aren't just procedural exercises. His subject matter expertise ensures that our aspirations for our future aren't just ideas, but actually take life in our policies. On a personal note, Eric is also a role model for serving our community with energy and full commitment, while also prioritizing what matters most, his family. Should my motion be successful, I think we owe Eric our congratulations, and we owe Renee, Lindy, Ava, and Marlena our thanks for sharing their partner and dad with us to help steer the board as we all work on a better Arlington in 2020.
Great. All right, we have a motion. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Aye. All right, congratulations. It's great. All right, thank you very much. We're going to move on to a brief, if I can have that box, please, Mr. Former Chair. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. All right, so we always present a ceremonial gavel to the outgoing chair, which we have here. And this one says, Christian Dorsey, Chair, 2019 Arlington County Board. And I am very pleased to present this to you. I would like to first just say a few words, Christian. I have just been struck you and I have known each other a long time. By the way, I've always said never go after Christian when speaking, but anyway, I'm going to do it here. And I have just really this year been so struck by your grace, your kindness, and your sharp intellect. I mean, you have done a wonderful job steering us through actually the toughest meeting in 23 years I've ever participated in March. I don't know who else could have handled that meeting as well as you did, and we're just all grateful for you for doing that. Christian's a real asset to this board, to this community. We are lucky to have you, and you're an asset to the entire region with your work on Metro. The whole region is lucky to have you. So thank you so much, and I am very pleased to present this to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, moving right along, we have 4 items that we need to do really fairly quickly, but we will work through them. And one is the adoption of the calendar year 2020 County Board meeting schedule. Ms. Crystal, would you like to make a motion?
I would. Colleagues, I'm going to move that we adopt the calendar year 2020 County Board meeting schedule outlined as an attachment to a report dated December 27.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Crystal, would you like to speak to your motion at all?
Fortunately, I have one of those organizational items that probably requires no clarification. We are delighted to share with the community as well as among ourselves our calendar for meeting in 2020, and those who wish to mark their calendars and join us for conversations about the budget and other regular business can find this 2020 calendar on our website.
All right, great. All right, it's been moved, seconded, spoken to. No other speeches. We will move right along. All in favor, please say aye. 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 All right, that brings us to adoption of calendar year 2020 County Board meeting procedures. Mr. DeFranti, would you like to make a motion?
Sure, I'd like to move the adoption of the calendar year 2020 County Board meeting procedures shown in attachment 1.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. DeFranti, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, just briefly. Most of the procedures that we're adopting tonight are exactly the same as in past years. There's items on the agenda and materials. This comports with state law regarding the Open Meetings Act. There's items regarding public comment, the consent agenda, testimony on agenda items, closed meetings, and the procedures that we've had in the past. Just a couple of things I want to highlight. At the bottom of Section 1, or actually A, at the bottom of Section A, we're making some slight adjustments to make it a little easier to make sure that we have the procedures not in such detail that we can, that we are governed by procedures when actually the clerk is going to need some flexibility. This basically comports with the fact that we get a lot of our packets, this is in A7, through email now. And so we're asking that people get the materials to us by the Wednesday before in order to be posted. We're also asking that we have some flexibility in receiving those materials. So that's 7 under A. And then there's really only one other major change or significant change that's worthy of mention, and that is we have a timing change that's sort of consistent with the switch that I just mentioned with respect to emails sent to the county board email address. We ask that you get those to us by the Wednesday beforehand, similar to Section A that I just mentioned. Those are the only 2 changes, and those are my only comments.
Thank you. And that's in order to make sure that they appear online, that people can see them. And we'll try to get them up if they come in later, but we can't guarantee it past that date. So, yeah, just checking that.
Sure. There's only one other item I wanted to just mention that's relevant to our civic associations. So Sandy and all the civic association leaders that are here, as a practice, we've talked a little bit, and the chair is going to be asking that as you come up, that you just describe how you went about getting support for your civic association's position. That is a way of making sure that the great work that you do in talking with all the members of your neighborhood gets reflected. So if you held a vote and that's how you reached the conclusion with the position that you're bringing to us for your 3 minutes, we'll ask that you describe that, and that's really just a practice that I know the chair wants to use.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I think we all do. And it's 5 minutes, I think, for Civic Association presidents. All right. Thank you very much. Any further conversation? All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. That brings us to adoption of calendar year 2020 procedures for budget and tax rate public hearings. Mr. Gutschall, would you like to make a motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will move that we adopt the attached resolution adopting the calendar year 2020 County Board meeting procedures and the annual budget and tax rate hearings for the annual budget. and
Thank
tax
you. Do I
rate
have a
hearings.
second?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Mr. Gutschall, would you like to speak to
Yeah,
the
the only
motion?
thing, I mean, this is pretty straightforward, what we've done in the past. The public budget hearing dates will be, this year will be on Tuesday, March 31st, and the tax rate hearing will be on Thursday, April 2nd. And then also, this is a CIP year, so we will have, the CIP public hearing is scheduled for Tuesday, June 30th. And all those meetings, of course, are right here in this boardroom and will be widely advertised, as they usually are. And I suspect most of the people in this room will already know how to participate.
I think,
those
and then they're going to be televised too, so if you can't
That's
be here,
right.
you can watch them.
That's right.
Thank you very much. So we have a second spoken to. Any other remarks? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Motion passes 5-0, brings us to adoption of calendar year 2020 tiebreaker resolution. Mr. Dorsey, would you like to make a motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move that the county board adopt the following resolution. Be it resolved that the Arlington County Board determines that there shall not be a tiebreaker whose duty it is to cast the deciding vote in the case of a tie vote of the members of the Arlington County Board during calendar year 2020.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Mr. Dorsey, would you like to speak to your motion?
Just briefly, Madam Chair, thank you. Title 15, Article 2, Section 1421 of the Code of Virginia permits localities such as ours to allow for the election of at-large, for the election at large of an individual to serve to break a tie in the event that the full board is not present to decide a matter. Consistent with prior years, the county board is choosing not to exercise this authority.
Thank you. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. And now that brings us to our appointments, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to read a certain amount, but I will be as expeditious as possible. So, and this does not require a second. I move that we appoint Christian Dorsey to the National Capital Region Transportation Planning Board, that we reappoint Eric Gutschall to the Metropolitan Washington Air Quality Committee, that we reappoint Christian Dorsey to the Board of Directors of Council of Governments. I move that we reappoint Eric Gutschall to the Climate, Energy, and Environment Policy Committee, reappoint Libby Garvey to Region Forward Coalition, reappoint Matt DeFerranti to Region Forward Coalition, reappoint Libby Garvey to Chesapeake Bay and Water Resources Policy Committee, reappoint Matt DeFerranti to the Human Services Policy Committee. That takes care of our Council of Governments positions. That brings us to the Northern Virginia Regional Commission, and I move that we reappoint Matt DeFerranti and Libby Garvey to the Regional Commission. That brings us to the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, and I move that we reappoint Christian Dorsey and designate as the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority appointee from Arlington. And reappoint him, excuse me? No? Okay. And we reappoint Katie Crystal and designate her as the Virginia Railway Express Operations Board appointee from Arlington. We reappoint Libby Garvey and designate her as the Virginia Railway Express Operations Board alternate appointee from Arlington. All right, that brings me to the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority. I move that we reappoint Katie Crystal. That brings me to the Arlington Solid Waste Authority. I move that we reappoint Matt DeFerranti for a term to expire December 31st, 2022. Christian Dorsey for a term to expire December 31st, 2023. Katie Crystal for a term to expire December 31st, 2023. Libby Garvey for a term to expire December 31st, 2020. Eric Gutschall for a term to expire December 31st, 2021. And that is all of our appointments. Are we all right with that? We're good? All right. Doesn't require a second. All right. And I would call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, that passes. And that brings me to our advisory group chair designations. A few more to read through. All right. And we will designate the following. Again, this does not require a second. I move that to the Audit Committee, we designate and reappoint Libby Garvey as co-chair and Christian Dorsey as co-chair. Designate and appoint, Christian Dorsey as co-chair. To the Citizens Advisory Commission on Housing, we designate Eric Berkey as chairman. To the Civil Service Commission, we designate George Bailey as chairman. To the Disability Advisory Commission, we designate Rosemary Ciotti as chair. To the Economic Development Commission, we designate Frank Napoli as chairman. To the Emergency Preparedness Advisory Commission, we designate Adam Genest as chairman. To the Environmental and Energy Conservation Commission, E2C2, we designate John Broom as chairman. To the Fiscal Affairs Advisory Commission, we designate Paul Holland as chairman. To the Human Rights Commission, we designate Roland Watkins as chairman through January 2020, and Kylie Tibbetts as vice chair through January 2020. To the Industrial Development Authority, we designate Edwin Fountain as chairman and designate Ted Johnson as vice chair. To the Information Technology Advisory Commission, we designate Mary Crennel as chair. To the Joint Facilities Advisory Commission, we designate Greg Greeley as chairman. To the Park and Recreation Commission, we designate William Ross as chairman. To the Tenant Landlord Commission, we designate Kellen Macbeth as chairman and designate David Tim as vice chair. To the Urban Forestry Commission, we designate Phil Klingelhofer as chairman and designate Evelio Rubiela as vice chair. And to the Planning Commission, we reappoint Elizabeth Guerin for a term ending on December 31st, 2023. And I'll speak briefly to my motion, which is to say thank you, everybody, a lot for what you do. It's really helpful, and I hope I got everybody's name right. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Aye, all right, motion passes 5-0. Great, thank you very much. All right, that brings us to the favorite part of the meeting, where we make just a few remarks. And I will start off with those remarks. And I first want to say, thank you to my board colleagues for your confidence in me. I really appreciate it. This is one of the best boards I've worked with in my 23 years. It really is. And I'm really looking forward to what we're going to do together this year. So thank you. And to our county manager and our staff, which mostly, there's some of them here, I think. I want to thank you. It is your work that makes the vision of this board and our residents a reality. And it's a privilege. I find it a privilege to work with you every day. So thank you very much for what you do. And I want to welcome everyone here. Thank you for coming. We're really glad to have you here. And I particularly want to recognize our school board members. And we've got the chair, Tanya Talento, and the vice chair of the school board, Monique O'Grady. And we've got Barbara Cannon here. And I don't know if any of your other members are here, but I know our superintendent, our acting superintendent is here, Cynthia Johnson. Thank you so much for coming and being with us. Really, really appreciate having you here. So this is a big year. All right, we're entering our 100th year of being called Arlington. It's also the 100th year of women having the right to vote, and the 61st year of our schools being desegregated. We just adopted our equity resolution last fall. Today, many people in Arlington and many businesses are excited about the change and growth spurred by Amazon's arrival. And today, many people and businesses in Arlington are concerned about, even fearful of, that very same change and growth. We've been managing change and growth for some time, doing it well. But the arrival of Amazon has made the scope of our current challenge large and clear. We need to change a paradigm. The paradigm that the most vulnerable in a society are the first to suffer from change and the last to gain from it, if they gain at all. Economic change tends not to be equitable. That's the old paradigm. We want a new one. We want to be a model of progress and growth with equity, and that's a tall order. I think focusing on 3 areas in 2020 will help. First, equity. We must commit to an Arlington where progress benefits everyone, not just some. And that especially includes our older residents, the people who built the Arlington we have today. Second, innovation. We need to double down on innovative thinking. We can't always keep using the same solutions. Third, resilience. The solutions we find must not only be equitable, but they need to last over time. So, as board chair, I will continue to focus on equity in 2020 like our chair did in 2019. We have a lot of work to do. It's outlined in the resolution we adopted, and it includes 4 simple questions. Who benefits? Who's burdened? Who's missing? And how do we know? I plan to use these questions as a guide in our decisions this year. If we make it a habit to ask these questions, we can truly start changing that old paradigm. However, it will take more than just to focus on equity. If we want to find new solutions, we will need to innovate. There are different definitions of innovate, but I like our managers the best. Innovation means removing the barriers to our thinking that keep us from seeing solutions. One of the greatest barriers to seeing solutions is the isms. Racism, sexism, ageism, tribalism, etc. These isms are part of the air we breathe as a society, and we so often don't even see them. Another barrier is the natural caution of doing things the way we've always done them. These are ingrained barriers to innovative thinking, and neither will fall easily, because innovation means taking risks, calculated risks, but risks nonetheless. If you try something you've never tried or no one has tried yet, you're going to make mistakes. The more successful companies, individuals, and communities know this. They take calculated risks so they can learn from the experience to improve next time. Now, we've been innovating some already. It hasn't, of course, always gone smoothly. For example, the innovative online snow map we introduced during the blizzard of 2016. It let everyone see which streets had been plowed and which had not. Unfortunately, exhausted snowplow drivers were the source of the information for those maps, and they made mistakes. So frustrated residents saw their unplowed street marked plowed. It was painful. But we used the lessons from that storm to improve. We did. Among other things, we now use GPS, not exhausted drivers, to tell us where a snowplow has been. And we were reminded of another important lesson. It's always wise to test innovations first with pilots and demonstrations. By this summer, we hope to have some demonstration projects right here in the Bosman Center, including one with streetlights that can charge electric vehicles. We will learn from that and perhaps have a solution for how to charge large number of electric vehicles throughout the county. Sometimes, though, you can't really pilot, you just have to try it. About 2 years ago, we decided to work directly with Montgomery County, Maryland, and jointly hire a contractor to help us in our effort to reduce noise from airplanes flying in and out of National Airport. Neither of us has the expertise to effectively analyze the data and argue our case to the FAA. A joint contract across state lines like this has really not been tried before, and it's now clear why. We embarked on another painful process of joint procurement with 2 different legal departments and 2 different purchasing departments in 2 different jurisdictions in 2 different states. Elected officials, board members, staff, and especially residents have all become frustrated. People are not always patient with the inevitable mistakes or stops and starts of innovation, nor do they always understand the need to do things differently. And their upset can create a lot of pressure to fall back on the old ways of doing things. In this case, we are finally close to signing that contract with a consulting firm that can work with both our communities and has the expertise we need. And the lessons learned should help us moving forward. More and more, the big systemic challenges we face will require innovation and cross-jurisdiction cooperation. That's why we held a rare joint meeting with Alexandria last year and agreed to work together on affordable housing, workforce development, and supporting small businesses, especially those owned by women and minorities. Likely, there will be bumps along the road with this joint effort, too. Now, we can navigate these bumps if we maintain good communication with our residents and our public, and if we all keep a sense of humor and goodwill. Which brings me to my third focus, resilience. The challenges of our future require that we be resilient so we can bounce back from setbacks of all different kinds, like climate change. The July 8th storm showed clearly that our 20th century infrastructure will not work well for 21st century storms. When we begin our work on the CIP this spring, I expect to see some very different solutions to stormwater management. These solutions might look risky to some, but will be what we need for resilience in our future climate. To be resilient, you should be healthy. The work of Destination 2027 showed clearly large disparities of health equity here in Arlington. We need to look at community health differently, too. Resilience means being emotionally and socially resilient. That's why the city of Boston identified equity as their major resilience issue. If inequities create resentment and division, then people can't pull together in a crisis like they need to. Here in Arlington, our excellent schools, theater, and art programs enrich our community and help pull us together to be resilient. But growth is straining them as well. Sustaining their excellence for everyone will take innovative approaches in the future. Equity, innovation, and resilience all fit together. So as we celebrate our 100th anniversary throughout this year with panel discussions, films, book talks, and yes, a birthday cake right here on March 16, I hope you'll all come, we will be looking both ways, to our past and to our future. I'm looking forward to working with everyone to help make that future one in which Arlington thrives and no one is left behind for at least another 100 years. Happy New Year. Thank you. And I think next up is maybe our vice chair.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, colleagues, for your support this year. I greatly appreciate it. And Katie, those were really wonderful, heartfelt remarks. You really know what makes me tick, and I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversations. For those that don't know, sometimes in the hallway back here, it goes between debate and friendliness. We're always friendly, but we can get heated too. We're passionate. We're both passionate. So I want to talk today about leveling up. Leveling up is a concept in gaming in which a character experiences some sort of progression that usually entails unlocking new abilities, skills, or access to new items. I submit that Arlington enters 2020 not just as a new year or even a new decade, but actually at a new higher level. Our hard work and thoughtful planning have paid off. We've leveled up. 2020. The year 2020 has always represented for me the very far-off future. In my early career, Vision 2020 exercises and documents were everywhere, with the obvious play on perfect sight and 2020 as a distant utopian destination. Well, we've arrived, and while Arlington is utopian by many measures, we are not without our challenges. Fortunately, we have done so much, so well, for so long, that we have earned access to new skills, abilities, and tools that allow us to level up and take our community to even greater heights. The hallmark of our new level, to me, is less talking about our need to adapt to a changing world and more getting on with enacting our adaptations. Not surprisingly, Amazon's arrival is a pivotal, definitive event. We're no longer lamenting an office vacancy crisis. We now have the wherewithal to conquer the obstacle left in our path by BRAC and structural office market disruptions. We're taking our community to a new level with the increased tax revenue anticipated by the reversal of our pernicious office vacancy. But Amazon's arrival has also leveled up our focus on how we grow. How we grow matters, and our next level of managed growth will focus beyond first-order urban design principles of sidewalk widths, building heights, and traffic circulation, and instead level up to an essential focus on equity, infrastructure like schools and stormwater, and a broader definition of quality of life and livability. As any 12-year-old gamer can tell us, the thrill of making it to a new level quickly subsides as the reality of the newer, more difficult challenges set in. With an eye to the future, I will continue to work with our top-notch staff, excellent business and nonprofit partners, and of course, our first-rate, dedicated citizen volunteers to meet the challenges of our time as we continue to unlock new abilities in our quest for a more livable and equitable Arlington. So first, housing Arlington. How we grow truly does matter. The next level of managed growth will require new tools and a modernized zoning ordinance to expand our housing supply in a way that enhances the livability of our existing neighborhoods. Richard Tucker and his team are already bringing new energy, creativity, and partnership and resources to bear on the urgent need for housing, grounded in policies that promote equity, opportunity, stability, and adaptability. We will continue to leverage new sources for AHIF for lower-income households and use the market to deliver new housing types for the missing middle. We've already begun the community conversation that will determine what the right housing mix for Arlington is. I commend the neighborhoods surrounding National Landing for the extensive citizen-led work to craft a livability action plan for a collaborative approach to planning a highly livable community. They've leveled up. Next, public facilities plan. Under the direction of the JFAC 2x2 Leadership Committee, earlier last year, APS and county staff began the development of a long-range, comprehensive community facilities, public facilities plan to guide the collaborative, creative, timely, and efficient siting and development of county and schools facilities. Known as the PFAC, this PFAC framework acknowledges the constant tension between urgent, real-time needs for school seats of a particular type in a specific quadrant of the county by date certain, and the overwhelming desire to plan for school sites in a holistic manner that can only be done when thinking beyond a 5 or 10-year timeline. I will continue working with Matt Ladd of our CPHD staff and our APS counterparts, including Robert Ruiz and JFAC Chair Greg Greeley, to finalize the scope and begin drafting this next level plan by July of this year. The goal of the PFAC is to have options for seats in a master plan so that when we need them as our school population grows, we have a simplified site selection process for schools and county leaders to choose the best available site according to agreed upon criteria while avoiding pitting neighbor versus neighbor. Next is our community energy plan. A huge milestone for leveling up was the adoption this past summer of a major update to our CEP, which commits us to achieving carbon neutrality by 2050. This is not an aspirational goal, but a true commitment that I intend to work with Demetra McBride's AIR team to ensure we complete. The forthcoming implementation plan will incorporate goals for buildings, resilience, renewable energy, transportation, county government actions, and education and human behavior. I also share community-wide excitement that our General Assembly in Richmond has also leveled up this year. I know our incomparable Legislative Director, Pat Carroll, is already working with our delegation on legislation for renewable energy and tree conservation, among others, to help reach our goals. Next, then, is biophilic design. Speaking of trees, resiliency, livability, and leveling up, reconnecting our built environment with nature is a new paradigm that will redefine the future of city life. More than just adding greenery, biophilic design incorporates patterns of nature into both private and public realms, bestowing the benefits of beauty, stress reduction, higher productivity, better health, and greater resiliency. I also want to focus on small business. I join Mr. Schwartz, our county manager, and all my colleagues in welcoming our new Director of Economic Development, Telly Tucker. If landing Amazon was the penultimate final test of our last level, a reinvigorated focus on small women and minority-owned businesses known as SWAM, and that's not small women, that's small, women and minority-owned businesses, will be the hallmark of our next level of equitable economic development. BizLaunch, led by Tara Palacios, will conduct a local strategic campaign to highlight and profile our small businesses, culminating in a celebration of Small Business Month in May with the inaugural launch of the Commonwealth of Virginia's SWAMI Awards. With new leadership at AED, I look forward to a deep dive conversation on what technical, financial, and regulatory assistance would help both cherished legacy businesses and entrepreneurial startups to level up. Innovation. Finally, a key advantage of leveling up is the ability to take on calculated risk in pursuit of innovative solutions, as our chair just discussed. For me, innovation is doing things differently or doing different things to solve our problems, usually aiming for a better outcome. I look forward to working with Chair Garvey to identify the barriers that keep risky ideas from the launch pad. Chris Horton, our county auditor, has expertise to offer, and I personally would love to pursue small-scale partnerships with APS students through programs like Arlington Tech's Capstone Project or Wakefield's Senior Project to tackle discrete tasks to improve resident engagement, smarter workflow, and data-driven decisions. So, today is proof that even a distant future will one day come to pass. I'm honored to work on this next level with my amazing colleagues, talented manager, and his brilliant staff, and the passionate citizens who I know care about this community as much as each of us. Happy New Year to each of you, and thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gutschall. Mr. DeFranti.
Thank you, Chair Garvey and Vice Chair Gutschall, each of you colleagues, for your kindness last year as I joined the board and your commitment to sound policy that serves all our residents well. We had a very good 2019. I agree with you, Chair Garvey. The hard work of each of you, our talented and committed staff, our advisory commissions, and our thoughtful and engaged community made it a great year. Specifically, 2 of the 5 priorities that led me to run for the board, economic growth that benefits our community as a whole, and 100% renewable electricity by 2035, we made significant progress on last year. That leads me to optimism for 2020. On our economy, we ended 2019 with an office vacancy rate of under 15%. That is a testament to Arlington economic development and each of you, as well as our community. That's down from significantly more than 16% last year. This year, we must continue our commitment to inclusive economic growth with a greater focus on small businesses, and I know that's a priority. On our goal of achieving 100% renewable electricity by 2035, the Community Energy Plan included short-term targets and ambitious long-term goals. I will continue to focus on increasing energy efficiency and on the steps we need to get to 100% by 2035, and I look forward to working on the CEP implementation framework over the coming months. We've set broad policy in those 2 areas in the right direction, I feel. 3 priorities that led me to seek this office need, I believe, some attention, and I'm looking forward to working on them. Ending child hunger in Arlington by 2022. Housing affordability, we need both commitment and creativity on that issue. And building the schools we need to educate every child well. That will be my focus. I'll start with child hunger since it will be a mostly new body of work. Thank you, Chair Garvey, in particular for supporting this work. I really appreciate it. Your insights and partnership already have been helpful, and I'm looking forward to the work. We know that child hunger exists in Arlington. APS served 31% of its students through the free and reduced school meals programs in 2018. The Arlington Food Assistance Center estimates that it served more than 4,800 children in 2019. And if you talk to DHS and APS staff, both confirm that they hear from and worry about children going hungry or receiving inadequate nutrition when they are not in school, weekends, winter breaks, during the summer when summer school is not in session. However, as you've said, Chair Garvey, and also Mr. Dorsey in a conversation last year, we need additional data to better identify the gaps where students are not being served and to make sure that children are receiving that nutritious food. Feeding America, the nation's network of food banks, calls this a missing meals analysis. It's a quantitative study to learn when and where our children go hungry. Collaboration and coordination between the county and APS will be critical. Thanks to you, Mr. Manager, Deputy County Manager Michelle Cowan, and Director of Human Services Anita Friedman, as well as each of my school board colleagues, we are primed to obtain a better quantitative understanding of where children are going hungry and a qualitative analysis of how we make sure children in Arlington receive nutritious food over the coming months. I look forward to this work as one way I see to advance equity over the coming year. Second, housing affordability. We made significant progress on affordability last year via additional resources, the Crystal House parcel, and well above $24 million in Affordable Housing Investment Fund contributions from the community benefits associated with site plans. We also made targeted changes to our zoning ordinance, removal of the caps on bonus density in the corridors, and changes to senior housing to help us serve our seniors. Our progress, however, comes in a housing market that is making renting and homeownership in Arlington more and more expensive. This year offers a new opportunity to rise to the challenge. And we will need to step up with commitment and creativity that meet the moment. The commitment we made in our guidance to the manager on the fiscal year 2021 budget to the data we need on those living below 30% of area median income in Arlington. More than 26,000 people living in households with an income of less than $36,000. That data will be key. So will, in my view, providing the $9 million in additional AHIF funding, or as close to it as possible. I'm not unmindful that there's a little controversy regarding that significant of an investment. But I feel it's important, and I know we'll have other needs in the budget. I believe AHIF funding best addresses the 4 questions that you mentioned with respect to equity, Chair Garvey. We will also need to be creative. On the rental side, this means partnering with nonprofit partners such as the Arlington Community Foundation and looking for truly innovative solutions with partners in the field such as the Alliance for Housing Solutions and others. With respect to homeownership, the missing middle housing type study is set to be completed this summer. Thanks to you, Mr. Manager, and to staff for this work as part of Housing Arlington. I really couldn't be that much more excited about a policy area, frankly. I look forward to the results and to engaging with our community. This is not a foregone conclusion. This is a chance to engage. We have to make homeownership more possible for more Arlingtonians, and that will not be easy. Third, building the schools we need to educate every child well. We made progress on meeting our schools' needs in the budget last year, and as you said, Vice Chair Gutschall, in planning for their future as well. Thank you for your leadership on the JFAC. I have not yet purchased that cape that I've been promising to get you that says JFAC on it, but truly you have been an excellent leader on this, and it has moved us forward as a community. I look forward to being a liaison on that, on JFAC again this year. Thank you as well, Mr. Manager, for sharing with the school board the list of sites that can help address our need for additional capacity for APS students. I think we all know that that represents a step forward in collaboration from years past. The next steps to address our school capacity challenges will come through further collaboration with the school board colleagues and also through the capital improvement plan. I'm mindful that we will have many competing priorities, but I believe it is consistent with our work last year and Arlington's long-standing and deeply felt commitment to education to prioritize high school capacity in the short term and middle and elementary school seats in the longer term in the CIP. Other issues came up last year, and they will undoubtedly again this year. I am grateful and bold enough to mention the behavioral health docket last year, which was a big priority for me, and I will continue to be engaged on issues related to equity for our most vulnerable residents. I also believe good governance requires additional investment in our stormwater system to respond to high-intensity weather events like the July 8th storm. We cannot prevent all flooding, but we should respond and become more resilient. I'm confident we will do so, and I will make this a priority. As I close, I just want to thank you, Ms. Crystal, Mr. Dorsey, and Madam Chair for your work on transportation issues. I don't spend every day thinking about them. I do believe we are headed in the right direction in terms of investment and accountability, and it is truly due to your extraordinary work. Thanks for your time. Thank you for everyone's continued commitment to serving Arlington, and Happy New Year.
Ms. Crystal.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and congratulations again to you and Mr. Gutschall. Looking forward to our new leadership team. And thank you to all of you for joining us today. We really do appreciate having you here as we embark on some thoughts about the year ahead and look forward to collaborating with everyone in this room in your capacity as citizens and leaders and commissioners and staff and colleagues on the school board in our 2020 year. So, the Oxford Dictionary named climate emergency the word of the year in 2019, which seemed appropriate for a year marked by flooding and forest fires and hurricanes, not to mention emergencies of a more political nature as well. Reflecting at last year's end on all of these crises and the urgent advocacy that they spurred, it struck me that there is actually a certain appeal to the state of emergency. Regular life and its restraints are set aside, creating the opportunity for extraordinary action and rapid response. Lumbering bureaucracies mobilize to deliver swift relief. Neighbors act selflessly, even heroically, to help one another. And so it's tempting to wonder if we couldn't operate this way all the time, at least on the most exigent issues in our community. But the reason that the state of emergency works is because the competition for resources, the time, the money, the attention that characterize our democratic process are temporarily suspended. Decisions that we make to respond to a crisis are the opposite of the enduring and structural change that we seek. And so in preparing for 2020, I have been thinking about how we maintain the urgency and clarity of focus that accompanies an emergency while making the changes that we can sustain in the long run. This is certainly needed when it comes to addressing our local state of emergency last year. Flooding that was historic by precedent, but will not be historic in terms of the storms to come. Stormwater infrastructure, and particularly the kind of large-scale projects that can remediate last century's suburban development practices, will be one of the major discussions and priorities of our capital improvement planning exercise this year. But they will be neither easy nor inexpensive. An urgency paired with sustained prioritization is equally needed when it comes to the cause of that flooding, climate change, and our community's response to it. I'm proud of the big, audacious goals that we adopted with the Community Energy Plan update in 2019. And in 2020, we are going to begin to make the hard decisions necessary for implementation. How will we transition our fleet to electric vehicles in a financially sustainable way? How can we help create the market conditions for advances in renewable energy generation and storage while reducing energy consumption in all of our municipal operations? On a regional scale, our Commonwealth ended 2019 on the precipice of a transformative passenger rail infrastructure investment. I am really looking forward to in my VRE and Northern Virginia Transportation Commission roles in the year ahead to helping see it through and to dramatically cutting the transportation emissions of tens of thousands of Northern Virginians every day. When it comes to housing, since the 2015 adoption of the Affordable Housing Master Plan, we have been tackling our community's deep need for committed affordable rental housing with an energy and dedication befitting the emergency that it is. That is an urgency we must maintain. Yet we have been painfully slow to address the evolution of many of our low-density neighborhoods into expensive enclaves out of reach for all but the wealthiest of home buyers. We have been too slow to confront the role that our own zoning ordinance plays in keeping our housing stock homogeneous and unaffordable in too many corners of the county. This may actually be my 4th year in a row calling for the legalization of the missing middle of moderate density ownership housing forms in Arlington. But with our study kickoff set for this spring, I'm encouraged that action will at last be upon us in 2020. And lastly, I am excited that 2020 will finally be the year when we apply the same urgent clarity of focus that we bring to short-term school construction projects to the long-term, as in really long-term, facilities planning for the next 30 years and beyond. As our Joint Facilities Advisory Commission helps us draft that long-range public facilities plan, our planning staff have been working on an assessment of available county-owned land, identifying more than 24 locations already in our inventory that could be appropriate for school sites. My enthusiasm about this 2020 planning work is personal as the parent of APS class of 2037. Yeah, that makes us all feel old, right? But also because it is a genuinely exciting opportunity to recognize that Arlington does have room to grow and that we're constrained less by our 26 square miles than we are by our own imaginations. After a 2019 of emergencies, it's probably too much to hope that the 2020 word of the year will be climate action or action of any form. But action can be a word to characterize our year here ahead in Arlington County. From our schools to our housing to our infrastructure, this will be a year to step up with urgency and with commitment. Thank you.
Mr. Dorsey.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and congratulations to you and to you, Mr. Gutschall. I look very much forward to supporting you both in this first year of the 2020s and know that we have a terrific year ahead of us. Congratulations to you, Ms. Crystal, as you begin your second term. And Mr. DeFerranti, you're no longer a rookie. Congratulations on earning your veteran stripes. I look forward to the year ahead. 2019 was quite the significant year in Arlington. There was, of course, Amazon, and with it, the most significant affordable housing contribution this county has ever received. But our year, though, was much more than that. Permitting finally entered the 21st century. We established regulatory regimes to enable the development of smart cities technologies and to bring order to the shared mobility devices that populate our public rights of way. We completed monumental updates to our plans that govern our public spaces and also approved a plan to have ours become a carbon-neutral community in 30 years. And we began the necessary work, the very important work, so that our community can become one where one's status doesn't decide one's outcomes, where urbanization doesn't disconnect us from nature, and where pedestrians and bicyclists can be safe on our streets. In Arlington, we vision, we plan, and we execute. And in 2020, I look forward to the work to widen sidewalks, upgrade and underground utilities, and begin installing transit stations along Columbia Pike, to substantially completing the facilities at Lubber Run and Long Bridge, to transforming several parks, including Benjamin Banneker and Jenny Dean. All of these incredible investments, these new facilities or upgrades to existing ones, will benefit many generations of Arlingtonians. But I also look forward to the planning work this year, to plan the future of Lee Highway, and to update our urban forest and natural resources plans. And I very much look forward to the implementation frameworks for both the Public Spaces Master Plan as well as the Community Energy Plan. But you know what? This is the year where half of our time is going to be devoted to consideration of our annual operating budget, as well as our capital improvement plan that will take us through fiscal year 2030. So I will prioritize providing sufficient resources for our public schools, funding metro expansion into Loudoun County and to Dulles Airport, keeping our infrastructure, our assets in a state of good repair, investing in making our community resilient in the face of the climate crisis, developing the capacity to deliver infrastructure and public facilities in Pentagon City and Crystal City so that residential livability doesn't take a backseat to commercial redevelopment. And also leveraging the creation of the preservation of homes for low and moderate income earners who are woefully underserved by our current housing market. Planning and executing these priorities will require the very best of us, but it's important that we also take the time this year to vision. Now, there is no doubt that those of us who have been in this region for a long time are witnessing a period of tremendous change, and that is certainly reflected here in Arlington. There is also no doubt, because we hear from them on a regular basis, that there are some who do not welcome all of these changes. I get it. If you have been someone who has been well served by the way Arlington has been, it's understandable that you would be concerned that the pace and shape of the changes that you see will diminish your quality of life. But I also hear from those who have not been as well served, who embrace change for the potential increased opportunities that growth and investment can bring. However, we, and I'm speaking about us, must resist the temptation to see these perspectives as being irreconcilably at odds with one another, and look to engage those who hold different points of view about change that may be different from our own. And we also need to bring the totality of views on change into dialogue with one another. The truth is, there is no responsible policy mechanism that we can implement that will preserve the status quo. But it's also true that the inevitability of change will not automatically produce positive outcomes for those who have endured diminished opportunities to live and thrive in our county. We must come together as a community to plan for change and growth, but also to shape it so that Arlington, the Arlington that we built, can evolve to better serve both the long-tenured and the newcomer alike. So in the year ahead, I want to engage with as many Arlingtonians as I possibly can in any forum to consider how we encourage sufficient and appropriate housing, improve our resilience to weather events, and enhance our natural resources, while also having the infrastructure to move people and to educate our children. Idealistic? Perhaps, but realizable? Absolutely. And that is why last year I prioritized equity as a central framework for our governance. By developing the capacity to recognize barriers that marginalized and vulnerable populations face in trying to thrive, we can deliver public policy that is responsive to all and not only to those with power and influence. Now, I am excited about what we're doing right here in Arlington, but my aspirations in housing and transportation connectivity, sustainability, resilience, and human development exceed our ability to achieve needed results alone. I will look to multiply our efforts through collaboration with our fellow jurisdictions in Northern Virginia, our neighbors in the National Capital Region, and with our state government. Now, our remarks tonight are important in setting our direction and tone for the year. But as the wise sage Benjamin Franklin once noted, well done is better than well said. So with that, I'll shut up and say that I'm ready to get to work. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, colleagues. We have a nice little brief reception out in the lobby, and you are all welcome to partake and chat a little bit informally. We will be back here meeting with our Civic Federation. It's scheduled for 7, but we won't quite make that, but it'll be a little bit after that, and we're looking forward to that. That's an open meeting, so even if you're not a CivFed member, I think it's okay for you to sit in the back and watch if you'd like to. So, see you at back. Happy New Year. This meeting is concluded.